This is Conan the Barber, issue 89. This is by the classic Conan the Barber creative team of Roger Thompson and Sal Buscema, brother of that John Buscema. I think in my long history as a YouTuber with occasional viewers, I think I have only ever reviewed 2 Conan the Barber comics, and both of them were quite early on, and I can't watch my early videos, so I don't expect any of you to. Honestly, I would say any video by me from before 2024 isn't even worth watching. Conan the Barber and his lady friend Leith and his liberated slave friend Zula, they are storming a castle. I'm not going to pretend I know lots about Conan the Barber, but here is a quick little crash diet of knowledge. Marvel started publishing Conan the Barber comics in 1970, and they were very successful. Conan the Barber is a character created by Robert E. Howard in the 30s. Many of the characters and mythology featured in the comics are straight from Robert E. Howard's stories. The Marvel comics are one of the more respected and celebrated pieces that have been done with Robert E. Howard's creations. Marvel published Conan the Barber comics well into the 90s, and I would say that the comics are responsible for a massive part of Conan the Barber's longevity. One of the things that excites me, and I imagine chafes a lot of Conan the Barber fans, I love that these comics and the character and all this mythology are actually canonically part of the Marvel Universe. All of this is happening in the far distant past of the Marvel Universe. Conan the Barber exists in the Marvel Universe. One of the main incorporations of Conan the Barber continuity is Set, the Serpent God. Set is an evil deity created by Robert E. Howard. He is a dark god worshipped in Conan's days, and Set is utilised in many Marvel stories, pretty much any involving the Serpent art, which has some continuity within Marvel's Conan the Barber comics. And then there is the 1989 crossover SeaWorld Attacks, and I am famously, undisputedly, YouTube's leading authority on all things SeaWorld Attacks. I got this and a few other issues because of their connections to that stuff. Our villain in this, Thoth-Amon, he is a thrall of Seth. He also wears the Serpent Ring, a mystical artifact which I remember reading about alongside the Serpent Amulet. Both of them are mentioned in the SeaWorld Attacks backup stories, I believe. We'll come to them much later. Conan the Barber has a bit of romance on the side with Leith. I looked up how to pronounce her name, and it turns out nobody really knows for certain. But in doing so, I did manage to learn a few things, such as the fact Leith is Conan the Barber's first love, and that she has starred in comics of her own over at Dark Horse, who took over publishing the Conan the Barber comics in the 2000s. After Marvel parted ways with the license. Other than the art, These first few pages aren't great. The characters are announcing everything and handing the reader nothing except exposition. But it does get better after that. We are fully introduced for this issue to Thoth-Amon. Maybe my opinion is entirely affected by the fact that they start talking about Set here, and so my ears perked up and I got into it. I am, in many ways, a terrible comic book fan because I am apathetic to anything that I cannot fit into my Marvel universe. That is Thoth-Amon at the bottom. We also have a mean queen woman, and that would be another reason I got into it starting now. Thoth-Amon I know from the combination of those SeaWorld Attacks backup features, the saga of the Serpent-Men, I know him from those, but he does make an appearance as a construct in Marvel 2-for-1 issue 66. We see everyone who has worn the Serpent-Men brought to life by the Serpent-Men. I am pretty sure, one of them is Conan the Barbarian as well. The Queen is wearing the Serpent Amulet. It really annoyed me that even with all the exposition thrown around, the comic was quite bad at giving us her name. It is Nefer, but she is now known as King Catesphon. I'm just going to call her Nefer because that's her actual name, and it is easier, and calling her a king might confuse people and it might enrage any comedy sidekicks I might have. Thoth-Amon and Nefer form an alliance, and Beerleith is mesmerised. She is summoned by hypnosis to this serpent monster, and this is a man-serpent. Not to be confused with the Serpent-Men. Zula, the slave, saves her, and Zula, he actually slays the beast. If you want a quick cheat sheet to understand Men-Serpents and Serpent-Mens, a man-serpent is like a serpent with the head of a man, and Serpent-Men are the reverse. A man with the head of a serpent. I've simplified it a tad, but that generally works out as a good way to grasp it. The Serpent-Men have some use in the Marvel universe. They were a plot point, a subplot in SeaWorld Attacks. The Men-Serpents, on the other hand, were not. Both serve Seth, or whoever Seth's acolyte is, in this case, Thoth-Amon. The trio are in a cave, and Conan the Barber, he falls down. He falls off a little cliff. He is separated from the other two. But then, Beerleith shows up and she attacks him. Huh? What's going on there? Did I miss a meeting? Don't tell me your ex is in town. It is a Serpent-Man impersonating Beerleith to try and get close to Conan the Barber to kill him. This is what I mean though when I say Marvel were quite late comers to listing what comics they had out at the time. An entire page here of announcements, and all it really mentions is Marvel Treasury Edition 17 and a Star-Hawk comic. And the Beatles, who could forget the Beatles? We are actually nearing the end of the issue. Conan and the real Belit and Zula scare off a whole troop of Serpent-Men, and then they excitingly get out of the cave. And I don't know, as a story it seemed pretty thin. Spider-Man versus the Home Wrecker. I didn't mind it. I don't think it was necessarily a great issue to sample, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It did have an evil queen, so I give it 7 thumbs up.